Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the classic 1990 Jean-Claude Van Damme action film, Death Warrant. The film is directed by Darren Safarian, written by David S. Goyer, and starring, of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme as well as Robert Guglielmi, and I'm sure I always pronounce his name wrong, Cynthia Gibb, George Dickerson, Art Lafleur, and Patrick Kilpatrick. Right. The film focuses on Van Damme's character, Louis Burke. He is, is in a Canadian mountain, essentially, who is chasing down, at the beginning of the film, a serial killer called the Sandman. He takes down the Sandman, it jumps forward a couple of years, something like that, and he is approached by the district attorney to go undercover in the local prison as there is a series of unexplained deaths. So they're going to kind of send him in there under the guise that he's a bank robber or an armed robber, and he's to investigate from inside the prison. He agrees. His liaison is Amanda, played by Cynthia Gibb. And once in the prison, he learns of a dastardly scheme, a human organ trafficking scheme that he uncovers, and his life becomes immediately in danger. Right, what are my thoughts on Death Warrant? This one, when this first came out, and you got to remember, this came out really very early in his career. I'm not sure if this was like his third, fourth, fifth film, something like that. It was very early in his career. But I remember at the time I was obviously really, really into Van Damme. And I really, really enjoyed his movies. Bloodsport, Kickboxer were absolutely fantastic for me. And I wasn't ready at my youthful stage of my life. I wasn't ready to see like a Van Damme film where he's kind of getting beat up quite a bit, because he does in this film. It's a prison film, of course he does. You don't really expect a character to be put in a prison and then for them to just flip, kick, and swan around the place owning it. Not generally, anyway. And I certainly didn't expect that. I'm not sure what I expected. So I wasn't overly keen on this for many, many years. But it's one of those that has grown on me as I have matured. I can appreciate it more for what it is now. Don't get me wrong, this is no prison classic. It ain't no Escape from Alcatraz or Shawshank Redemption. Let's not get that mixed up. But it's actually quite a decent film. If you like prison movies and you like that kind of format, you're kind of getting a lot of that here. And I think, Van Damme actually does a pretty decent job here. Now, obviously, there's no sense me going on about his acting in every single review that I do. We all know he's not in the same league as a lot of other actors, even some actors in the same, genre as him in action. But he makes for a fairly charismatic lead here in this film. And the prison stuff is pretty good. He builds a relationship with Robert Guglielmi's character Hawkins, this aging prisoner. Builds a bit of a bond with him and a couple of the others. He gets into a couple of prison fights, which is what you expect. I really hoped or wanted, I remember when I first watched it, for that to be the format of the film, for him to get to prison fights constantly and, almost be like a tournament inside the prison sort of film. And that's not what this is really at all, It's him going in undercover trying to figure out why all these prisoners are getting killed. And for me as well, the film doesn't do enough with that. Very early on, if you've got a brain in your head, you figure out what's going on in this prison. It doesn't take, a genius to figure it out what is going on in this film in regards to the big mystery sort of thing. And I don't think it plays on it enough. I think they should have gone in, full hell for leather in regards to the mystery around what's going on in there, because they don't really fully commit on any of the things like the mystery, the investigation, the prison fights, the brutality of the prison. It kind of just touches on each of them. There's a scene where he gets put in, solitary confinement that looks okay, pretty bad, but he's out of there fairly quickly. There's a couple of prison fights, as I've said, but they don't last very long, and there's not much more of that. You only really see him doing a little bit of investigating. Most of it is in getting snippets of information and then ringing up to the Cynthia Gibb character, asking her to do some, sneaking about and finding out what's going on outside the prison. But the real highlight of this for me is they give a real credible villain for Van Damme in this, Patrick Kilpatrick, who plays the Sandman. Now, Patrick Kilpatrick, I don't think he's ever played anything but villains in films, because he looks like a great villain. And every single film that you see him in as a villain, he's very memorable as the villain. And this is no exception. This is, you could argue, maybe his most memorable villainous role. And it does give Van Damme a credible villain to go up against. It's just a shame then. It really does amp up the excitement when the Sandman, who Van Damme thinks, if you like, well, it doesn't really explain, but you think he's been killed at the beginning of the film, but obviously not. He's been transferred into this prison, and he knows who Van Damme is. So Van Damme knows at that point, not only is his cover blown, but this homicidal serial killer, lunatic, has been transferred into this prison, who nearly killed him years previously. So at that point, you're kind of thinking, okay, this is really getting interesting now. And then the end of the movie just kind of happens, and it's all very fast paced, like prisoners getting out of the cells, running through the prison, being chased by prisoners, with Sandman in the background doing this, that, and the other, and it all builds up to this massive climax that you think you're going to get between Sandman and Van Damme, and it's a little bit of an anticlimax. Unfortunately, I think they could have really made that final fight scene between him and Sandman, much more iconic. It doesn't go on long enough, and for me, it was a little bit of a letdown back then and upon the rewatch, if you like. But this is a solid Van Damme outing. It's something a little bit different, which you could argue he probably needed at that point in his career. It's well made. Interestingly as well, this was initially funded by Canon, I believe, and it was going to be called Dusted. But they went bust while this film was being made, sort of thing, and then MGM I think took over the rights of all of their movies, and they're the ones that renamed it Death Warrant and distributed it, sort of thing. So that's why the title change happened. So yeah, as I've said, a solid Van Damme outing here. I did enjoy the rewatch. It's a much better film than I remember, and definitely one worth checking out if you haven't seen before. So thanks for joining me for this review, everybody. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. I will, of course, be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.